Hello and good evening, welcome back to the Airborne Lawyer YouTube channel. And this evening you find me at London's Heathrow Airport in Terminal 5, where British Airways are based. And I'm going to be flying the Airbus A320 that we see just in front of us here from London to Frankfurt. We're flying the Airbus A320, registered Golf Echo Uniform Yankee India, which in real life, right this second, is flying Speedbird 916 out to Frankfurt. So, and an ultra-realistic flight this evening. In addition, I am flying to Frankfurt in real life tomorrow. So it's my first real flight in 3 years, given pandemic restrictions. So I thought I'd give myself a test run on the sim tonight. Obviously I won't be flying the plane tomorrow though. So we find the Airbus here in what we call the cold and dark state. So it's cold because nothing's on, and it's dark again because nothing's on. All the screens are dead, everything's off. The only thing is just down here on what they call the FMGC in the Airbus, we have connected up our ground power, and we've opened the door so that we could get on the plane. Little green light up here is the button to turn on the power, and I can get some lights turned on so we can start to see what we're doing. And we are going to take the plane through the cold and dark setup. So we'll just get all the lights on. I am flying tonight the Flight Sim Labs Airbus A320, which is possibly the most realistic add-on I have on my entire sim. I am massively impressed by the Airbus A320. It's amazing. So got a few viewers online. Hello, thank you for tuning in. Once again, my friend Chris has joined us and is already quoting Alan Partridge, I see, which is welcome. There's always a good time to be quoting Alan Partridge. Right, so we're starting to turn on the plane. I've got all the lights on in the cockpit, and what you now do is there's something called a dark cockpit kind of methodology. So you want all the white lights to go off. So I'm going to turn all of these like that. I'm going to turn them on, which makes the white off light disappear. Slightly counterintuitive. And there's one more down here. We're also on ground power, so I'm going to turn on the nav light and logo lights. When you go outside, you can now see that our tail fin is nicely lit up. And you can see a little red light on the port side and a little green light on the starboard side. So our lights are on. Let's now turn on our inertial reference system up here. This is basically how the plane finds its way. And hello also to Henry, who is watching. Thank you for tuning in, Henry. So there are 3 inertial reference systems, and they just take a little bit of time to turn on. There we go, all 3 are now on. And we're now just going to do a few more bits and pieces down here. So we're just going to turn on our weather radar and our predictive wind shear. We're going to turn on our transponder. We're going to turn on the TCAS system. TCAS stands for Traffic Collision Avoidance System, and will hopefully prevent us from crashing into any other planes. Although we are on VATSIM, and we are going to be tuning into air traffic control fairly soon. So, got the essentials underway. Let's turn on the second FMGC over on the right hand side. So FMGC stands for Flight Management and Guidance Computer. Now what we're going to do is actually I'm going to enlarge them like this. Let's just pop them out. We are now going to initiate our flight. Now this involves a stream called diffrips. Data, init, flight plan, radio, init, perf, sec. So that's DIFRIPS. It's just a way of remembering it. So you start with diff, which is a way of just checking that all your flight data is up to date. It is. I updated it this morning. That's to do with your navigation system. So we can then go to init, which is kind of initiation. And at this point, we're going to basically put into the sim our flight plan for this evening. So our flight number is BAW916. Pop that in there, go init request, and as if by magic, up comes our flight plan. So it's all correct, apart from the fact that for some reason it thinks we're flying at 19,000 feet, which we're not going to be doing. But EGLL to EDDF, is Heathrow to Frankfurt. That's the airport codes. We are also going to ask it to get the latest wind data. So we've done D and I of diffrips. We're now going to go to flight plan. And at that point, we're just going to pause. And we're now going to go over to our other FMGC screen and go to the ATSU, which is kind of us talking to the ground. So we're going to initiate our flight on the ground. And we are going to load some fuel into the plane. Now, outside here, I've got what they call GSX, Ground Services X, on the screen. You can see these vehicles with flashing beacons. If I had the time to do it, you could actually load up the plane with suitcases, and you can get fuel trucks out and all that kind of stuff. But don't quite have the time to do that tonight. So what we're going to do instead is just load up the fuel instantly. So we'll say that our departure time is going to be roughly, I expect, 8:35. And I'm just going to say refuel instantly. And if I then bring up our fuel page in the middle here, you can see that we have 6,200 kilograms of fuel on board. And that's how much fuel you need to fly to Frankfurt in a plane like this. That is why planes are so bad for the environment. So that's loaded, and what we're also going to do is board the plane. So we have a 0 fuel weight. In other words, if you had not a gram of fuel on the plane, the whole plane would weigh 62,500 kilograms. 62.5 is 0 fuel, ZFW. And I'm going to... And actually what's really cool on the Flight Sim Labs A320 is it shows you how that's apportioned. So you've got 54 people sat in rows 1 to 9, 60 people in rows 10 to 19, 54 people in rows 20 to 29. And we've got cargo in the front hold, 2,094 kilograms, and so on and so on. It's really, really accurately done, this. Again, I can ask it to board manually, but it does take a while. And honestly, I'll run out of things to say. So I'm just going to say instant and request, and that means everyone's got on board. So that now means we've got the plane powered up, and we also have people on board and fuel on board, which makes it all worthwhile, of course. So let's now go back to this FMGC screen. You'll remember I mentioned diffrips. Data, init, F for flight plan. Now on the flight plan, we are now going to put in how we're going to leave Heathrow and how we're going to arrive in Frankfurt. So we have the basics of our flight plan, but what we're going to do, and I'll explain a bit more about this as we go, but we're going to be departing from runway 09 right via the Detling 1 Juliet standard instrument departure. And I can insert that, and that just drops that straight into our flight plan, which once we've turned in the right direction you'll be able to see here on our navigation display. Now when we get to Frankfurt, I'm currently expecting to land on runway 07. Let's or 07 center. Let's just talk you through that a little bit more actually. So here's real world flight radar. Okay, because the winds at Heathrow are blowing roughly from east to west at 050 degrees at 8 knots, planes always land against the wind. So that means they are currently landing over the top of Windsor Castle, over Slough, or Scenic Slough as it's known, and they are taking off right over London. Now if you look here, you can see these planes coming. This is real world. So here's an Air France plane, and they are landing on the runway at the north of Heathrow, which is 09 left. And this plane here, which is Shuttle 12 Tango, he's taking off on 09 right. So we know we're taking off on 09 right, which we've just put into our flight plan. Let's jump over now to Frankfurt, not very far away in flying terms, and see what they're doing here. Here the winds are at 040 degrees at 10 knots. Now, you can just about make out the direction of the runways. So there's runways here, and there's another runway at the top here. Now, that means they are landing, by all accounts, on the 7s, as we say, 07 left, 07 centre, 07 right. And I'm going to hope for 07 centre, and that's what I'm going to put in the sim. So let's transition back to the sim, and I can select here my arrival. I'm going to say ILS 07 centre, and we're flying the Yonoko 3 Delta arrival. Now what this has just done on here in flight plan is it's just put my planned flight route into the plane. And what does that actually mean in practice? Let's take a look at Navigraph now. Now here we are in Navigraph. If I load my flight into this, this is our flight route. Okay, so we are going to be taking off from Heathrow, and we're going to be flying a departure called Detling 1 Juliet, which takes you over the tiny village of Detling, which is quite near Maidstone in Kent. It's a set departure. When you fly a set departure, it will give you specific guidance in what you need to do and where you need to be and how high you need to be and so on. So here again in this grey circle, this is Heathrow Airport. We're going to be taking off on the southerly runway, so the bottom line there. And this shows us the way that we have to go. And it's very, very strict. There's a hell of a lot of planes flying around in London, so you need to be really, really careful with where you go. Now it means that we're going to be following this line exactly, and we're going to be climbing up to 6,000 feet, and we cannot go above 6,000 feet unless and until we have air traffic control clearance to go higher. So that is what Detling 1 Juliet is. We're then going to be heading down towards Dover, and then we're going to be flying across the channel, and then into Germany, and we'll be flying an arrival route, which is this green line here, called the Yonoko 3 Delta, into runway 7 left, centre or right at Frankfurt. Now, what we've just been doing here in the sim, using this little computer screen down here, is basically putting that flight route into the plane. So back to diffrips. Data is done, init is done, F for flight plan is done. Radios, well that's dead easy. We're going to tune 2 radios. We're going to tune London and we're going to tune Detling. Detling has a VOR beacon and its code is DET. And when we tune it, we can find out just how far away we are from it. So at the moment we're just, if you look at this screen, we are 1.3 miles from the London VOR. It's not currently picking up Detling, but it will once we've taken off. It's just a secondary reference for navigation purposes. So diff r, all done. Now diff ri. Go to the init page. Again on the init, we have to just confirm our weights. So we double check the 0 fuel weight. We put in the block fuel, which is 6,200 kilograms. And then we're going to go to the P of diffrips, which is perf, or performance. At this point we're going to go back to our other screen. It gets quite complicated, but you get quite quick at doing this. And we want to do a performance request to find out how fast the plane needs to go in order to take off. So let me talk you through how we're going to do that. Evening John, thanks for joining. Good to see you online tonight. Right, what we're going to do here is put in our departure runway. So we're going to depart from 09 right, as we were just saying. We are going to have... I'm just going to go to the next page very quickly and get 2 bits of data from elsewhere on the system. This is so cool. None of the other add-ons do this, but in real life you get something called a load sheet, and it tells you some essential data. So it tells you that what your 0 fuel weight is, it tells you what your takeoff weight is, it tells you how many passengers are on board. This is all completely realistic. This is all completely how it would appear if you were flying for real in an Airbus A320 up in the cockpit. Now, two things I'm really interested in here are the the takeoff weight, which is 68,500 kilograms, which I'm going to pop into our performance request, and something called the MACTO. I'm going to be completely honest with you and tell you I haven't a clue what the MACTO is. It's got something to do with physics, but that's where my knowledge ends. Now the rest which we need to put in is all weather related, so at this point what we're going to quickly do is tune into London Heathrow's ATIS. I'll just double check that Heathrow ATIS is still online, which it is 128.075. I'm going to put this on the second radio over on the right hand side so I can tune into other stuff.
Wind 050 degrees.
And now we're just going to listen. This is going to give us our info on what the weather's doing here at Heathrow.
Temperature +13, dew point +2, QNH 1011. Acknowledge receipt of information Charlie, and report aircraft type and current QNH on first contact with Heathrow.
So it's information Charlie.
Heathrow information Charlie. Time 1950 Zulu. Automatic. Arrival runway 09 left, departure runway 09
so we're taking off 09 right.
Transition level, flight level 75. Surface wind 050 degrees 7 knots. Visibility 10 kilometers or more, no cloud detected. Temperature +13, dew point +2, QNH 1011.
Okay, lots
of information Charlie.
Lots of info there.
And report aircraft type and current QNH.
So, John, the radio settings you kind of get to know. I mean, you can find them. I'm looking at another screen just on the top right hand side here, which does remind me what the radio frequencies are. But yes, Heathrow ATIS 128.075 is just something I've come to know through wasting far too much time on flight simulators. Now, so what have we got? That's information Charlie. It tells us that we're taking off 09 right. Transition level they mentioned was flight level 75. Transition level, where do you even start with that? That's the point at which you change from local pressure for the altimeter to a general pressure for all aircraft flying really high. So all an altimeter is, when an altimeter tells you how high you're flying, all it is a measurement of air pressure. It's just a barometer. Now, when you're flying local to Heathrow, you've got to know what altitude you're flying at relative to Heathrow. So you change your pressure to read what the pressure is at Heathrow. But you're going to get to a certain altitude. If you kept changing your pressure every few miles to register local pressure, you're going to be going up and down all over the place. So you just switch to something called standard pressure, at which point all planes are then flying relative to each other at the correct altitude. It's quite difficult to explain, but hopefully that's clear. So what we're going to do is we start off flying at local pressure for Heathrow, and once we've gone through 7,500 feet, we switch over to standard pressure, and that is what transition level is. There'll be a written test on this afterwards. What the ATIS also told us is winds are 050 at 7. Winds are so important with flying. Now we put that into our performance calculation. It told us the temperature is 13 degrees centigrade. A little bit chilly. Temperature's really dropped this evening. And it told us that the QNH is 1011. That is 1011 hectopascals. That is the air pressure measurement that we need for the altimeter. I'm then going to just send that, and that is going to give me a message with my performance calculations very shortly. Now what we're just going to do is make sure here that we've got 1011. So just here is basically how we set the barometer. That needs to be set to local pressure, and that is 1011 hectopascals, or 1011. I would have to remind myself what QNH stands for, but it's basically an abbreviation for the air pressure. Very simple how you work that out. Heathrow is at, as it happens, about 100 feet above sea level, and you just make sure that your barometer is reading 100 feet above sea level each time, and that will give you a readout of what your barometric pressure is, and it's 1011 hectopascals. A few other things whilst we're waiting for the performance chart to come in. You might recall on the Detling 1 Juliet departure, back here, Let's just go and have a look at this again. You might recall that we can only climb to 6,000 feet before we get air traffic control clearance to go higher. So going back to the sim, I'm going to select 6,000 feet in the autopilot just here, so that I don't go above 6,000 feet. And on that sim, believe me, they get quite cross if you do. What else are we going to do? I think we're pretty much ready, actually. It's all looking quite good. Just check, all the controls are all right. And over here on our FMGC, you can now see a new message which says performance. This is another detailed page, which is going to tell us a few things. This is what's been produced as a result of me doing that performance calculation a few moments ago. So let's have a look at what it's telling us. It says, to start with, we need to have elevator trim of down 0.24. So I'm going to say down 0.2. And I pop that in there. I'll explain what that does in just a second. It's giving us a V1 of 155. It's giving us a rotate speed of 155. And it's giving us a V2 speed of 156. V1 is the speed at which there's no turning back. You have to take off at V1 because there's not enough runway to slow you down. V-rotate, VR, is the point at which you actually turn the plane and take off. And V2 is the speed at which you're going to leave the ground. And that, back over here, is done with flaps set to 1. We will not need full power, which means we can do a flex takeoff. And the temperature for that is 69 degrees. So that gives us our takeoff calculations. So we've now done diff rip. The last one is secondary flight plan. I'm going to copy the active flight plan. I'm going to, after detling, which is det, I'm going to imagine that we've had an absolute crisis and need to return to Heathrow. And this is a really good feature which gives me the ability to switch to another flight plan and quickly return if needs be. But honestly, never used it, so long may that continue. In advance of takeoff, always have the takeoff performance on the left-hand screen, and you have the flight plan over on the right-hand screen. So we're now about done. Let's just do a quick sweep through the cockpit. Oh, one thing I was going to tell you, what is elevator trim? I said that thing about down 0.2. So at the back here, you've got your elevators, just here. You can actually change the angle at which they are hitting the air. You can obviously move your elevators at the back here, but the whole rear wing here, if you look at that little bit there, you can change the angle at which they are hitting the wing, hitting the air. And it's an important calculation to figure out what angle they need to be at, given the weight of the plane, given the load of the plane, how fast you're going, what the winds are doing, etc., to give you the best takeoff performance. They are going to be set to down 0.2 for this departure. So now let's do that sweep through the cockpit. Just literally take a look, make sure the windows are closed. This plane is so well modelled, if you leave with the windows open, like that, you're going to get a major issue with pressurization later in the flight, so you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure you can see that red wing, or red ring around the switch. And let's just have a look through here. Okay, all is looking good. What I'm looking for over on the autopilot console is 3 dots, dot, dot, and dot. That means that basically the autopilot knows what it's going to do if I wish to engage the autopilot. And yeah, weather radar's on, predictive wind shear's on, transponder's on. All looking good. Looking overhead, I'm not seeing any alarming signs of white, of buttons which are white. Just double check the fire alarms are all working, which they are. So that is basically how you get the Airbus set up. Now here comes the interesting bit. We're now going to call up air traffic control. So let's go ahead and do that. And who's on tonight? We've got looks like we're going to 129.45. Okay.
050 8 knots, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, runway 09 right, speedbird 2203.
Easy 85, Quebec Hotel, stand right, setting 360 degrees.
Heading north, easy 85, Quebec Hotel.
Easy 8686, turn left, setting 270.
So it's pretty busy, but that makes it all the more fun.
Easy 53 uniform Quebec, turn left, setting
Just
270
pushing back
degrees.
with the jetway as well, so we're ready to go, and I'm going to call out the pushback truck.
Easy 63 Zulu Victor, turn left, setting 100 degrees.
Left to 100, easy 60, Zulu Victor.
Easy 313 Tango, climb flight level 360.
Goodness me, it's busy. Let's get the APU on. The APU is the power system, it's the auxiliary power unit, which allows the plane to be to run under its own power. I'm going to turn on the seatbelt sign as well.
Yeah.
London Control, good evening. Speedbird 916 on the ground at Heathrow with information Charlie QNH 1011, stand 522, requesting clearance to Frankfurt.
Clearance coming now via PDC.
Roger. Okay, so he's just told me clearance is coming via PDC. That means he sent it to me in a text message, which I can see on my screen just up here.
Setting 060 degrees, cleared the ILS, runway 08 right.
Okay, information Delta now.
Easy 53 uniform Quebec.
Detling 1 Juliet, squawking 7571.
Send 3000, easy 53 uniform Quebec.
Easy 515 Zulu, hold Juliet 1.
Juliet 1, easy 515 Zulu.
German cargo 628 Charlie with me.
Okay, this is exceptionally busy. It's really hard to get a word in.
German cargo 628 Charlie, fly heading 205 and climb flight level 340.
Climb 340 and was it 205 on the head in German cargo 628 Charlie?
Correct. And easy 313 Tango, monitor Unicom now, 122.8.
Well, Unicom 122.8 is sure, Tango. Have a nice day, Vancouver.
Quality 4894, contact Brussels 129.575.
19575, wait for 894
So the person we're listening to here is just a volunteer who helps out on VATSIM, controlling the aircraft. And it's clearly a busy night on VATSIM. I've had this guy before, he's one of the pros, and he's really, really good. I'm really patient with new beginners. If anyone wants to take up this hobby, he's very good at helping people out if they find it difficult.
25 miles, 08 right, descend to altitude 3,000 feet.
I'm just doing a few bits and pieces in the background whilst it's this busy. I'm just disconnecting ground power, because we don't want to be pulling away with a load of cables in place.
Negative QNH 1011.
So the plane is now completely running under its own power, and I'm going to turn on the beacon. Speedbird 916, fully ready, stand 522, request push and start, clearance via PDC.
Hang on, several at once then. So, easy 85 Quebec Hotel, 160 knots to 40 ME.
160 knots to 40 ME, H5, give it a brush.
Easy 515 Zulu, line up runway 08 right via Juliet.
Line by 08 right, easy 515 Zulu.
Easy 53 uniform Quebec, turn right, heading 0603.
This is
the ILS, runway 08
this is
right.
insanely busy.
Right, heading 06.
He needs some help.
Speedbird 9250, Papa, line up runway 09 right.
Speedbird 916, stand 522, request push and start, clearance via PDC.
Speedbird 916, push and start approved, face east, QNH 1012.
Push and start approved, face east, QNH 1012, Speedbird 916. Right, okay, so we've got to face London, so let's go ahead and do that.
515 Zulu, surface wind is 070 at 6 knots, runway 08 right, clear takeoff.
Clear takeoff, right, right, easy 515 Zulu. Control short to
Right,
X-ray.
so the tow truck is telling me to take off the parking brakes, which I've now done.
PDC 10.
And
Easy 8.
here we go,
8686,
we're pushing back.
speed 180 knots.
And you said QNH was now 1012, there's been a slight change in air pressure. I'm now going to start the engines.
Left to 285 and descend flight level 80, 63 Zulu.
So, ever wonder why it always goes quiet when you start the engines on a plane? Or if you haven't, look out for this next time. You'll notice all the air conditioning suddenly kind of goes quiet. The reason for that is the air conditioning takes a lot of power away from the engines, so the air conditioning powers down in order to get the plane's engine started.
Surface wind is 0508 knots, runway 08, 09 right, ship take off.
I don't know if the V-pilot, if the air traffic control is really loud for you, but it's a little bit loud for me, so I've just turned that down. How do I know all these things about planes? Henry, it's a great question. I was... it's all self-taught. YouTube is a gift for flight simmers, and it's just a passion. What can I say? It's just a passion. I love it. Okay, just heard that clunk. That's engine 2, which is now started. It says avail, as in available, which means I can now start engine 1. And I'm going to tell the pushback truck to disconnect.
Easy 8686, cleared the ILS, runway 08 right. German cargo.
What's really cool is if we want to, we can even go right down and see what it's like at the pushback track, like that.
German cargo 628 Charlie, climb flight level 350.
Cloud 350, German cargo 628 Charlie.
Easy 515 Zulu, route direct Brussels Park.
And you can hear engine number 1 slowly powering up. There it goes, getting faster and faster. I'm going to turn on my taxi lights at this point. And there goes the pushback truck. Okay, engine 2 just clunked there, so that's now done. There's a few things we need to do now that engines have started. Now, what we're going to do is first of all test all of our flight surfaces. So if you ever look out the window before you take off, you'll see all the flight surfaces moving around, and they always do this. So I'm going to turn to the left, turn to the right, push the elevators forward, push the elevators back, check the rudder, and check the speed brakes. They are all good. Next I'm going to set takeoff flaps. So your takeoff flaps need to be flaps 1. Next up, in case of a failed takeoff, we need to set takeoff, auto brakes to max, just over here. And we are going to turn off the APU because the plane is now being powered by its engines. So I can turn all of this off. And ahead of takeoff, you also arm the speed brakes, or the spoilers. So the speed brakes are the things which lift up above the wing, if you've ever seen those come out on a plane. And I think that's about it, but we can double check by clicking on takeoff config. And here, so auto brakes to max, done. Signs, that's passenger signs to have your seatbelts on, are on. Spoilers are armed, flaps are set to takeoff, and takeoff config is therefore normal, but we did just hear a slight alarm, which is just telling us that our engine's a little bit cool. So just down here, here's the engine display. This is telling us what the engine's doing, and currently the oil is at 35 and 45 degrees centigrade, left and right respectively. You need that to be above 50 in order to take off, but that's fine because by the time we've taxied to the runway, which is literally just over to our right hand side here, it will be at the desired temperature. So I now know that everything here is set up for takeoff, and we now need to request our taxi clearance, and I'm now going to turn off the dome light. Speedbird 916 for taxi.
Speedbird 916, first right, hold Bravo 11.
First right and hold November Bravo 11, Speedbird 916. Okay, so take off the parking brakes. The A320 is a very light plane, so it tends to creep forward of its own account, and whilst it's just doing that, I'm going to bring up
Ryanair 9308.
the taxi chart so you can see where we have to go. Here is London Heathrow. We are at Terminal 5A. We're literally just parked, just where it says Hanley, we're just parked above there, and he's asked us to take our first right and hold at November Bravo 10 just here. So, lovely short taxi for us tonight.
Easy 5150, there's nothing further now. Further climb, Unicom 122.
Let's just get the old headset sorted. There we are. Very good. Just going to give it a little bit of power just to keep us moving.
Thank you. Report your requested level. Ryanair 9308, climb, flight level 360. Super 916, you take your next right on Alpha, hold November Bravo 10.
Next right Alpha and hold November Bravo 10, speed 196. I find that the Airbus isn't the best at cornering in taxiing, you've got to take it slow.
Shuttle 2 X-ray, push start approved, face to the west to exit via Hanley, UNH 1012.
Pushing approved face west for
Hanley, a bit of extra power.
1012, shuttle
So he said next right, which we've now done, and straight ahead and hold at November Bravo 10.
No speed restriction, EV630 Victor.
EC26 Charlie Foxtrot, fly heading 255, then flight level 100.
Just coming back to that question about how do I know all these things about planes, Henry, I think, you know, it's amazing what you can find out online. There's so much stuff out there, and there's some brilliant YouTube channels which I've learnt so much from, and it is really quite fun to learn of all of it.
08 knots, runway 09 right, clear for takeoff.
09 right, clear for takeoff, speed 916. So there's November Bravo 10. There's a little sign at the side of the taxiway, so that was where we were going to hold, but we don't need to. Instead, what I'm going to do is turn on the landing lights, turn the taxi light to takeoff setting, turn on the wing lights, turn on the strobes.
Concorde 1 with you flight level 570 for flight level 60.
Slightly overturn there. Let's get the strobes on. There. So the strobes are the white flashing lights that you see out the side window. So we now have takeoff clearance. I'm just going to get us a little bit straighter on the runway because I turned a bit late there. Do bear in mind that, of course, a plane like this is normally flown by 2 people.
I'm not over the land right now.
Okay.
Alright, are you slowing down and then descending?
Right, so first of all, on takeoff, you're just going to take the power up a bit, like that.
That point, exactly. Sun Express 7,
Just to make
Charlie
sure
November, turn right heading 265.
that everything is going okay. Power is stable.
Beavers, Concorde 1, squawk 0.
And
0,
I'm then going to advance the throttles to flex MCT.
162, fly heading 250 degrees.
80 knots. And I know I'm not going to pull back until I hit that V1 V-rotate speed of 155 knots. So it's coming up. You can see it on the primary flight display.
3114,
There it is. Pull back. And as if by magic, we start flying. Okay, positive rate gear up.
On the controls, the plane speed was 9221, if you tend to be on stand 516, so Heathrow.
Goodbye to Heathrow.
To Wanaka.
Just going to zoom in a little bit on my navigation display. I am currently flying this by hand.
EC26 Charlie Foxtrot, speed 250. Sun Express 7 Charlie November, speed 250 knots.
Speed 250 knots.
I'm going to turn on the autopilot now.
916, report your passing altitude, climb now, flight level 290.
Passing through 1,700 feet, climb now, flight level 290, speedbird 916.
American 732, descend flight
So
level 110.
what the controller just told me there was to tell him how fast I was going. Sorry, how high I was, which is 1,700 feet, and he gave me the clearance to go up to flight level 290, which is 29,000 feet.
26 Charlie Foxtrot, descend flight level 80, landing 08 right. Easy 162, descend flight level 100, landing 08 right.
Seabird Concorde 1, London Control.
Seabird Concorde 1, yeah. Keegan 2 Bravo.
So a few things to do after takeoff. I've taken off the armed speed brakes.
Ticket, flight level 530.
You can turn off the taxi lights.
Yeah, I mean, you're outside my hand base.
And I guess we can turn off the seatbelt sign as well. It's nice and smooth. It's only a short flight, so may as well give people the freedom to move around.
442, heading 078.
You can start to see London over there.
Hello.
So this is on. I'm on Prepare 3D tonight, and
I am on the SID.
Okay. Yeah.
the graphics on Prepare 3D aren't quite as good as Microsoft Flight Sim, but you do get some really good add-ons. So I do my airliner flying on this sim instead of Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. If you look right over there, you can just see the O2 in Canary Wharf.
Hello, route direct Rodol.
Direct Rodol for runway
I've just-
9282.
I don't want that. There we go.
Seabed very ready. 1 moment, please. Seabed 916, fly heading 095.
095 degrees, bit 96. So the air traffic controller has just given me a heading of 095 degrees.
November Bravo 11.
So I'm now diverting from my planned route
28 Charlie, nothing further now. 1 at the Unicom. Bye-bye.
a little bit, presumably to avoid other traffic.
Come at Sherlock over 68 Charlie, go ahead.
American 732, you're landing 9 left, descend flight level 80.
We're now through transition altitude of 7,500 feet, so I'm going to switch over to standard pressure.
Landing 09 left.
Excuse me, Papa was 09 left for American 732. You want us to consider 8,000?
Correct, yes. Brake, Janek 925, fly heading 090 degrees.
Heading 090 degrees.
Can you crash the plane in the game? You can absolutely crash your plane. You don't really see kind of exciting graphics if you crash the plane,
Bravo for Birmingham.
but you can absolutely crash it, yeah. It's a thing of great pride to not crash your plane, I find.
When ready, descend flight level 220.
So you can really see the O2 down there in London now. Also just a string of white lights. That's London City Airport. You can kind of see the Thames Estuary out there.
X-ray wind 0508 knots, runway 09 right, clear to take off.
Clear to take off, 09 right, short to extra.
Now through 10,000 feet, so I'm going to turn off the landing lights.
Your range and touchdown is about 20.
Turn off the wing lights as well.
08 right. Descend to altitude 3,000 feet, QNH 1011.
Descend to 3,000 feet, QNH 1011. Descend to 7 Charlie.
Easy 162, descend flight level 80, speed 250 knots.
Let's take a look at Simaware and see if we can see ourselves.
732, fly heading 090 degrees, descend to altitude 5,000 feet, QNH 1012.
So this is the map of everybody who's currently flying, and there we are, look, BAW 916 A320, just over 10,000 feet, flying from Heathrow to
Charlie November, turn left
to Frankfurt.
Speed 220 knots, 4 great.
Not far to go. Here's Frankfurt, just down here.
7 Charlie.
Certainly in flying terms, anyway.
Speed 9250, Papa, when ready, descend flight level 200.
at this point you begin to wonder, has the controller forgotten that I'm on a set heading of 095 degrees and I'm not currently on my planned route? So if you look at the navigation display here, you can see the dotted line. That was the route we were planning on taking. The solid line is the direct heading that he's given us.
01, over to Unicom now, 1228, yeah.
122.8, Seabird 1.15, so good evening.
Good evening. Easy 26 Charlie Foxtrot, turn right, heading 270 degrees, speed 220 knots.
Just going to have a quick look at
American 732, turn left, heading 025.
the flight management and guidance computer. For some reason it is saying a cruise altitude of 29,000 feet. Oh, because that's what we're cleared to at the moment. But we are expecting flight level 340, 34,000.
Confirm that was for Ryanair 922.
Yep, over to Unicom now, have a great flight.
Afternoon, thank you for your amazing service, Ryanair 922.
Amazing service.
Shuttle 2 X-ray.
I have to say he's doing pretty well. It's pretty busy there tonight.
Safe flight.
Over to Unicom 122.8, change flight, shuttle to Electron.
Sun Express 7 Charlie November.
So right out by the Thames Estuary here,
Speed 180, Sun Express 7 Charlie November.
American 732.
you can see the Kent Peninsula just in front of us. Nothing takes very long when you're going at what we're doing now. Ground speed of 400 knots, about 500 miles an hour.
08 right, descend to altitude 4,000 feet, to an H1011.
1011, descending 4,000 feet to Heathrow.
Great question. Out of all the flight sims, which one is the best? Graphics, hands down, Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. You need a really, really good internet connection, and you need a very powerful computer to run it really well, but it is fantastic. I've done a lot of flying on Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, and you can check out some of my videos if you want to see what it looks like. It's a really good sim. The trouble is that a lot of the really good add-ons, like the plane I'm flying right now, have not yet been developed for Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. These add-ons take a really long time to develop. So, was that for me? So it takes a while for the add-ons to catch up, and these add-ons are so good, they are so accurate that I'm still flying on P3D at the moment. But I still rate Repair 3D. I think it's pretty good. It's pretty stable as well, and there's a good market of add-ons. Add-on aircraft, add-on airports, other add-on scenery for Prepare 3D. So you can kind of make it look a lot better.
Further descent to Unicom 122 decimal 8, goodbye.
Hotel Unicom 122 decimal 8, goodbye.
Ryanair 9308, nothing further, monitor Unicom 122 decimal 8.
Unicom 122.
Let's take a look outside.
9308, bye-bye.
Whilst we are...
American 732, descend to altitude 3,000 feet. Well established localizer, descend glide path 09 left.
So you can see France now.
Okay, descend 3,000.
Dover is just down here somewhere. Calais is just over the other side.
Easy 26 Charlie Foxtrot, speed 180 knots.
And there's the mass of London behind us.
Sun Express 7 Charlie November, turn right heading 050 degrees and cleared to the ILS, runway 08 right.
Right, heading 050, include ILS 08 right, expression 7 Charlie November.
Ah, John, sorry, I see your question there. Is it possible to pull back too hard and ground the tail? Yeah, it is. They call that tail strike.
9016, resume navigation direct Coxie.
Oh, nav direct Coxie, speedbird 916. So let's just deal with that instruction. I've just been told to resume my own navigation and go direct to Coxie, which is KOK.
Speed 160 greater until 40.
So I can just put that into the flight plan, and the plane is now turning towards Coxie. And now I'm back on my planned flight route. So, yeah, we were just saying that about tail strike. You can pull the nose up too quickly, and the back of the plane will just slam into the ground. And in fact, some aircraft are much worse at that than others. If you take something like a 777-300, which is really long, you have to be very careful of tail strike. With Concorde, it was a big issue, such that you Sorry, I was just checking that wasn't for me. With Concorde, it even had a little wheel at the back to protect you from
London
tail
Control,
strike.
Speedbird 9221, A320 Nemo stand 516 at Heathrow, request push and start.
Speedbird 9221, push and start the roof, face south, QNH 1012.
Just start first face south, Speedbird 9221.
If you go off to Duxford and see the Concorde in Duxford, you'll see the little tail strike wheel at the very back of the plane. So now you know.
Easy 162, descend to altitude 3,000 feet. KLM 2985, I told you could descend at your discretion, so I would start descending.
KLM 2985, sorry, didn't hear that. I'm descending to flight level 100.
Right. Now this is a fairly short flight. I'm expecting fairly soon to be passed over to the next air traffic controller. So SimAware is always just a few moments behind, but this is us here. We're well out over Kent, and it's looking like we're going to
I will be closing before you enter my airspace, I'm afraid.
Heading into Brussels airspace shortly.
Transavia 2605, good evening, flight level 150 to flight level 120, inbound LEM.
Transavia 2605, hello. I don't know where you got that route to Gatwick from, but it's awful. I'll send you a link to a website that's really good for routes in the future.
You do get some decent bands from VATSIM from time to time. So let's just take a look at a few things here and
turn left 240 degrees.
plan out the rest of the flight. So bring up the FMGC again. If I click on perf, that is telling me that I've got 38 miles to go until I'm going to reach flight level 290, 29,000 feet. Once we've completed our climb, we're expecting to go up to 34,000 feet. Once we've completed that, that will tell us the distance to go until we have to start descending, and it's not going to be very far.
Establish localizer
162, turn right, heading 360 degrees, speed 180 knots.
If I go to the flight plan page, you can see that we have 343 miles just down here until we get to Frankfurt. Again, in flying terms, that is nothing. Really, that's not a long flight at all.
Speed 160 round before the 5 EME, 26 request.
Channel 925, speed 300 knots.
So
300
we're
knots.
now out over the channel.
Speedbird 916, contact Brussels 131.1. Goodbye.
1311. Thanks very much for the service, Speedbird 916.
Channel 925, report speed to Brussels 131.1.
No, I don't think we need to worry about that. So 131.1.
Thanks for your amazing service, bye-bye.
No worries. Yeah, Channel 2, correction, easy to...
And as I flick that over, I'm now with Brussels.
If I was at flight level 230, speed 301 knots, heading 093.
So what I now have to do is say hello to Brussels.
4442.
Channel 925, Brussels control identified, flight level 230, turn right, heading
And let him know that I am on his frequency.
Right heading 105, expect ILS approach 01, should I identify?
Brussels control, Speedbird 389 is 2,800 climbing, flight level 60.
Speedbird 389, Brussels control identified 3,000 feet, climb flight level 180.
Climb flight level 180, Speedbird 389.
Brussels control, good evening. Speedbird 916 with you, climbing through flight level 255 for flight level 290.
Eurowings 2164, descend to reach flight level 60 over go, please.
Down to flight level 60, reach flight level 041.
F1 78 Uniform November, right heading 355, descend to 2,000 feet, QNH 1007.
Air France 78 Uniform November, turn right heading 355 and descend to flight level 020 QNH 1008, confirmed.
Negative QNH 1007.
QNH 1007, thanks for Air France 78 Uniform November.
Brussels control, good evening. Speedbird 916 with you, flight level 263 for flight level 290.
01, clear to land.
can't get a word in here.
And the runway 01, Eurowings 2160.
Cuba 9016, traffic control, identified flight level 265. Climb flight level 330, direct NVMe.
Climb flight level 330 and direct to Gillam, Speedbird 916.
Negative direct NVMe, November, India, Victor, November, Unicorn.
Roger, direct to Nivnu, Speedbird 916.
Quality 489
So
wind,
the controller there just
036 knots,
cleared me up to
runway
33,000 feet, which is
right.
good. I think that's probably where we're going to end up now. And said fly direct to Nivnu, which is a nice little shortcut. So I can click on Nivnu,
direct Golf Sierra Yankee.
insert, and that takes us pretty much all the way there, which is good. So I love the fact, you know, we're now with Brussels control, and you can tell that the guy is probably from Belgium, or certainly from Europe. It just makes it so immersive, so realistic, the fact that you speak to different people in different parts of the world doing this. If you fly over to the States, you will usually come across people who will be, you know, even more localized. Flying into New York, you often speak to real New Yorkers. I've flown into Houston and spoken to someone with a much more kind of southern US accent. It's really cool. It's great fun.
Good evening.
Okay, so one other thing just to show you here. On this display, you might just see this little blue line. That's showing us where we're going to reach 33,000 feet. So we're climbing and climbing and climbing, and then we'll get to 33,000 feet when we reach that blue line, which you can see we are little by little getting closer to all the time.
Taxi Romeo Foxtrot
Right,
167.
it's a short flight, so we now need to start thinking about our approach.
Romeo 4, stand 167.
Let's just
Romeo 4,
go back now to Navigraph.
393, wind 010 degrees, 7 knots, runway 07 right, clear for takeoff.
So here's our chart. We are the pink arrow just down here, so you can see we are just breaking into Europe now. And we are flying direct to Nivnu, so we're not quite flying on the line which we're expecting here. What we are just going to have a look at is the weather in Frankfurt, which is always so important. Whoa, it's loud. Let's just turn down the air traffic control a little bit.
Victor, right heading 250, descent flight level 60.
Right. I don't know how loud that is for you listening, but for me, that was pretty noisy. And, quite distracting in my left-hand ear. So here's Frankfurt. The winds... Oh, the winds have changed. So they're now coming from the north, 330 degrees at 6 knots. And what does that mean? Which way are they landing? Still on the... So they're still landing from the west towards the east. So let's assume that's going to be the case. So let's now go back to Navigraph. And people wonder why you need an autopilot. This is why, because there's a lot of other stuff to do whilst you're trying to fly. So let's take a look, and I'll show you a map now of what Frankfurt looks like, so that you can get the feel of it. Here's Frankfurt. It's a really strange airport, actually. It has 4 runways. It has one short runway here, which is for landings only, which is miles away from any stand. And then you've got 2 long runways here, which can be used for runway takeoffs and landings. And then you've got a runway here, which can only be used for takeoffs. So it's quite a complicated airport. We are going to be landing, parking up, I expect, somewhere just over here where it says N, but we'll deal with that later. So I said a few minutes ago when we looked at the real world flight radar, I said, oh, it looks like they're landing on the 7. So what do I mean by that? Well, 07 left, 07 centre, and 07 right here. So 7 left there, 7 centre, 7 right. Okay. which is good because we're coming from the west, so we can just fly straight in and land. Now, I don't think there are currently any air traffic controllers on at Frankfurt. I will double check that, but I don't think there are. And that means that we can largely do the airspace bit, we can manage the airspace for ourselves, which makes things easier. And I'm going to land on 7 Centre because that's going to take us in nice and close to our parking bay. So we will now jump back into the sim and start planning for that. And or rather make sure that it is all in there. So arrival, we are looking at ILS 7 Centre, that means Instrument Landing System for 07 Centre via Unoko 3 Delta. Unoko 3 Delta is the arrival route. Now in practice I might take a shortcut. If air traffic control's not on, I might take a shortcut. But Unoko 3 Delta is what's called a STAR, or a Standard Terminal Arrival Route. And this is what that is. So, any time you fly into a major international airport, you will fly a STAR, a Standard Terminal Arrival Route. A Standard Terminal Arrival Route is basically how you make your way into the airport, because you're not going to be able to see the airport until you're right on top of it. If you're flying, as we are now, at flight level 330, which is 33,000 feet, you're, what, 6-7 miles above the surface of the Earth. It's going to take a while for you to be able to descend down and see the airport in order to land safely. You can't just see it down there and suddenly decide to descend, otherwise it could be pretty fatal. So, Standard Terminal Arrival Routes, STARS, tell us how to approach an airport safely when you are going to start your descent from a significant distance out. Now, Unoko 3 Delta is the one that we've been assigned, which is this one here. If you follow the cursor, it's going to follow this line down here and then come into the airport. And if you look at that grey dot, you can see the kind of layout of the runways, which is vaguely similar to the map of the airport that we were just looking at. So we are, or should be, going from Unoko to Ibbville to Manov to Ramob and down and down and down. And then eventually you'll get to a point where air traffic control will say, right, now fly in this direction and pick up the route into the runway from there. So probably from round about here, air traffic control will then what they call vector you, direct you, so that you come in and they'll basically give you a series of compass directions so that you get onto the runway heading. So we're expecting to go Ibbville, Manov, Ramob and in. Let's just take a quick look and see that that is all in our sim. So on the flight plan, Ibbville you can see there, Manov you can see there, Ramob you can see, and so on and so on. That all looks really good. So that checks out. What else does our chart tell us? Well, not that much. What this chart might also tell you is a few things about how fast you need to go or how high you need to go, but it's actually not too detailed in that respect. It's, I mean, up here, for instance, it says maximum 230 knots and minimum altitude of 11,000 feet. That's fine. But I think that's only for turboprop aircraft. So, you know, sometimes when you look at these charts, it says by Ramob you need to be at 6,000 feet and doing 220 knots. So that gives you another indication of how high or how fast you should be going. But this all looks fairly straightforward. So that's what our approach looks like. Now if we just take a quick look again at the map of air traffic currently on VATSIM. We're making good progress. We're just now here. So you can see the route that we're taking out of London. We're just coming over Brussels. Frankfurt is not far down. But what I'm seeing here is that no one is online at Frankfurt. Okay, so I can kind of do this for myself. I don't need to worry too much about what the air traffic controllers are going to want me to do. So if I just also have a quick look at the full map, gives me a sense of how many people are flying into Frankfurt. A few. You can see a couple here. So we've got a Ryanair on approach in there. That's a Lufthansa who's going down to Munich. It's pretty quiet. So I think we'll largely be able to take a shortcut and just go straight in. In fact, I'm going to plan for that. So let's go back into the sim at this stage. The reason I'm doing all of this is I need to know when to start descending. What I'm going to do is go direct from, if I do let's do the plan view, that will be easy for you to see. So this is what our flight plan looks like at the moment. You can see it's a similar shape. Here's Yonoko and Ibville and Manov and Ramov. So it's a similar kind of shape to what we just saw on the chart. What I'm going to do is put in a shortcut which goes from Ramov down to DF444. DF444 is right, sort of on track for the runway. And the way I'm going to do that is to do some deleting. So I find in my flight plan DF444, and then I'm just going to delete everything between DF444 and Ramov, like this. And bit by bit, if you look at the other screen, you can actually see that it's changing. So we've now got everything gone between Ramov and DF444. And if I execute that, you can then see that we've just got a straight line. So we're going to make our approach a little bit shorter that way. Now the next question is, what does that tell us as regards how far until we descend? We've got 68 miles, 67 miles to descend. So this is short haul flying for you. It's really busy. It's really busy. We're now seeing on this display a white line here. That tells me when I'm going to start descending, and that is coming up pretty quickly. Okay.
Line 725, hold position, break KLM 28 Victor, wind 010 degrees, 7 knots, runway 01, clear to land.
So, 64 miles to top of descent.
From east across the right.
If we look over on this FMGC, it says enter destination data, which we now need to do. So what this is the opposite of that takeoff calculation we did. I now need to enter all the details for Frankfurt. So let's go ahead and do that. If we go back to real world flight radar and have a look at Frankfurt am Main, which is just down here. Sorry, that's Egelsbach. So here's Frankfurt, and it will give us a readout of what the weather's doing. So the temperature, I'm just going to write this down. Temperature's 9 degrees centigrade. The wind is 330 at 6 knots. It's going to be a very minor crosswind, but nothing too concerning. And QNH, the air pressure, is 1006 hectopascals. So what do we do with that? We're going to put it into the sim. I'm going to do it like this. So the QNH was 1006. The temperature was 9 degrees centigrade. The winds were 330. That's 6 knots. Transition level for Frankfurt is 5,000 feet. Something else we need to do to plan. No, that's not for me. I thought it was for a second. What we're also just going to do is go back to our Navigraph screen with our charts. And we're going to take a look at the charts for Frankfurt. We are going to be approaching, we are doing ILS 7 Center, which is this one. Another chart. This tells us numerous bits and pieces. So this is our runway kind of approach sequence. You can see the runway just in the middle there, and then you've got this kind of long, thin, triangular shape which guides you in. few things this says. So the localizer frequency, that's how you tune into the instrument landing system, is 110.55. The final approach course is 66 degrees. The airport elevation is 364 feet above sea level, and the runway elevation is 329 feet. It confirms again transition altitude is 5,000 feet. And then when you look down here, we need to find something called our minimum descent altitude. Now the weather, we understand, is quite clear, so that means it's going to be a Category 1 approach with a decision altitude of 529 feet. Decision altitude is the point at which you need to see the runway to be able to land. If you can't see it, you can't land. So we've got a decision altitude of 529 feet. If I just jump back to the sim, you can see here that we've got something marked Barrow, which is basically what we put our minimum descent altitude into. So 529 goes in there, and the autopilot will now call out. Say again, speedbird 916.
2916, when ready, descend to reach flight level 250 by Nivnu.
When ready, descend to reach flight level 250 by Nivnu, speedbird 916. I think he said Nivnu. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. So we've put our minimum descent altitude into the FMGC. Going back to this chart, you see this can also give you really useful guidance in terms of how high you need to be at which point. So when we get to waypoint Lompo, we need to be at 4,000 feet and then gradually make our way down, and this gives you other checkpoints. When you're 8 miles out, you need to be at 2,880 feet. When you're 4.1 miles, you need to be at 1,640 feet, and so on. We're going to be doing this fully ILS, so that's an instrument landing system is a specific system which gives you precision guidance right the way in. So I'm not too worried about that, but that's useful information to know just in case. The other important thing here is missed approach. So if it all goes wrong and I decide I'm going to need to go around, I'm going to climb straight ahead to 10 miles from Frankfurt and then turn left to go towards the Taunus VOR, maintaining 5,000 feet. VORs are radio beacons I can tune into and I can see. Again, we tuned into London and Detling on the way out of Heathrow. Taunus is just north of the airport, so this dotted line here shows what I have to do if I have to go around. I go straight ahead to 10 miles from Frankfurt, and then I'm going to turn left and head up towards Taunus. So, some useful information there on the approach chart. Now, a little while ago, the air traffic controller cleared us to go down to flight level 250, 25,000 feet, by the time we reach Nivnu. Oh, question from Henry, sorry, which I missed here. Is it possible to go too fast? Yes, it is possible to go too fast. If planes go too fast through the air that they're flying through, the pressure is too intense and it could cause the plane to break apart. So you can't go too fast. You have to keep the speed back. It can overstrain the structure of the aircraft. Right, so just going back, the air traffic controller told us to get to flight level 250, 25,000 feet when we get to Nivnu. So Nivnu is our next waypoint. We're 32 miles away from Nivnu. And we've got this white line here telling us when we need to descend. But what we just want to check is that we are actually planning to be at flight level 250 at Nivnu. Now if we bring up our flight management guidance computer, we aren't. That's expecting us to be at 27,300 feet, 273 there. So what I need to do here is change that and say I need to be at 25,000 feet. And now it's saying Nivnu, we need to be at flight level 250. That has had the magic result of bringing that white line very close to where we are. And I now will start descending in just a few moments' time. We are just 2 miles from top of descent, that distance there. 1 mile. Best put on the seatbelt signs. When I see decelerate appear on here, I need to begin the descent. There it goes. Okay. Here the engines pull back, and we're going down.
Climb flight level 370, direct, non-crew, speedbird 9021.
Fascinating discussion going on here about taking pet foxes on board your flights. In the comments. Most entertaining. I normally fly with 2 dogs around me, but neither of them have joined me this evening. So we are now descending. You can see that we're descending through flight level, or 31,500 feet. And we will reach 25,000 feet by NVMe.
Speedbird 2101, climb flight level 230. Direct to Turkey, expect vectors via LS01.
Brussels, easy for Papa Mike, request descent. Easy for Papa Mike, descent to reach flight
I'd
level
imagine that we are going to be leaving Brussels airspace any second now. Let's have a quick look where we are. Yeah, so here we are. Very nearly out of Brussels airspace, and we will be losing our air traffic controllers very shortly. Bingo, there we go. 122.8, thanks very much for the service, Speedbird 916. So we're now being passed over from Brussels control to what they call Unicom. Unicom is just an open frequency on VATSIM where you just announce your intentions so other traffic knows what you're doing. Now, whilst I love flying on VATSIM and I love having all the air traffic control banter going on in the background, it is sometimes a little bit calmer to just have it quieter and be able to concentrate. So, no further air traffic control at this stage. We're just going to be continuing our descent down to all the way down to 4,000 feet. Now that we have lost air traffic control, I'm going to be doing an extreme shortcut going direct to Lompo. So Lompo is the waypoint right at the end of the instrument landing system beam, which will guide us in. So we're going to fly direct to Lompo now. We're now overhead NVMe, and the way I'm going to make it fly direct to Lompo is to go into the DIR menu and find Lompo right there and just go direct. If you saw that on the display, you'd see that suddenly we went from having a whole load of green lines to just one straight green line all the way in. We have a company message which I can bring up. And the message is telling us that at Frankfurt we should expect stand Victor 116. Okay, very helpful. Let's go back to the Frankfurt charts and see if we can find that gate. Taxi chart overview. Where are we? There's a lot of taxi parking stands. Here we are. I think this will be it. So it was Victor 116, which is here. Okay, so that's the gate that we're expecting, and we're landing on this runway, this thick black line here. So unless there's any other traffic around, I'm just going to do what they call a roll to vacate. I'll just keep rolling all the way to the end of the runway, pull off, and we can park up at Victor 116. Nice and easy. Okay, let's catch up now with the descent, see how we're doing. And this is why you have autopilots because there is a lot to do all of this safely. We've got a thin layer of cloud here by the looks of it now. Oh, no we haven't, it's gone. That does sometimes happen. I use active sky to generate weather on the sim. And it's very accurate. So active sky takes real world meteorological information, which you can then put into the sim to generate, an approximation of what the weather should be doing, and it's really handy. I mean, you've got to use it if you're doing VATSIM, I think, because you've got to know that the weather you're flying in is the same as what everyone else is flying in. If you fly, say you're flying through something with a really strong tailwind and everyone else is in a headwind, it's going to be, your speeds are going to be totally disproportionate to everyone else. So we're well on the way down now, 16,300 feet. I'm just going to press the LS button here, which will show me the instrument landing system once it picks it up. And I'm also now just going to slow the plane up a bit. Just looking over here at the primary flight display, you can see the speed registered on the left hand side. Now the pink arrow is the speed that we should be doing, and because gravity is pulling us down, we've sped up a little bit. So if I put out the speed brakes, you'll now see that little yellow arrow have a downward arrow showing that the speed is now starting to reduce. So if you've ever been on a plane and you've seen the spoilers lift up at the side of the plane when you're in the middle of the air, in mid-air, that is to help the plane slow down. Okay, so now, looking at the primary flight display, we are about on that pink triangle, so I'm now going to bring the speed brakes in. Ah, yeah, sorry Henry, I just realised, because the webcam you can't see this. So well, I was looking at this primary flight display here, which shows you the speed we're doing. So we're doing 300 knots. Now you can't see it at the moment, but there will be a little pink triangle next to 250 knots, because here, 250 knots, that indicates the speed that the plane is trying to get to. And I'm just going to help it on its way again by just putting out the speed brakes. There's the pink triangle. So that's the speed we're aiming for. Let me just help it on its way. Not far to go at all now. Plane slowing down nice and quickly. Now the reason that we're going down to 250 knots is because we're about to go through 10,000 feet. And just like driving a car, there is a speed limit for aeroplanes. You have to do 250 knots or less when you are below 10,000 feet, and once you go through 10,000 feet you need to turn on your landing lights. So I'm going to turn the landing lights on, and whilst I'm at it I'll turn the taxi lights on. I don't have the landing gear out yet, but if I don't turn them on now I will forget to do so later on, and I've turned on the wing lights as well. So the plane is now nicely lit up outside with the landing lights on. You can see them just there. little bit of turbulence. And just managing the speed brakes. So it's just a lever down here that I'm using to control the speed brakes. If you look out on the wing, where are we? There, you see, as I move this lever, you can see those speed brakes going in and out. And that will have the effect of slowing the plane down. There we are inside the cabin. Dim lights for an evening flight. "26 miles to go now until we are basically going to be established onto the instrument landing system at Frankfurt. We should be on the ground in the next 10 minutes, I think. So I'm quite glad that this live stream's worked out. Okay, I actually did this at late notice because I did a live stream, or attempted a live stream last night, which I had to abandon because whilst broadcasting, my computer decided to choose that moment to update to Windows 11 from Windows 10, and everything went a bit wild. At one point there was like a strobe effect on the flight sim screen. It was just kind of flickering because I think Windows was trying to shut down all the software in order to do a restart to change it to Windows 11. So unfortunately I had to say a prompt goodbye and wish everyone good night as my sim crashed. And I decided at very short notice tonight to just do another live stream to check everything is now fully updated and working, and it seems to be overall. I hope you've been enjoying it. If you have, please do subscribe to the channel. The more the merrier. I do try and do a live stream normally about once a week. I just find it makes it, well, for me, I love flight simming, so it makes flight simming even more fun if I'm doing it with other people watching and commenting and participating. So thank you very much for doing so. You can actually start to see Frankfurt Airport in the distance now. It's just, oh, sorry, where are we? It's just there. Lovely clear night in Germany. And we do not have far to go at all. Time to just check how things are looking on SimAware. So we have another aircraft just in front of us by the looks of it. This guy here, GEC 735, is on his way in, and I'm just up here. So I now don't have an air traffic controller to assist with this, so I'm going to have to manage this myself. Well, the first thing is to slow down. So I'm going to slow plane down now to 220 knots. Put the speed brakes out. I'm going to activate approach phase. Now I can see the aircraft because I have TCAS on. Just here you might see a diamond shape. In fact, two diamond shapes. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to quickly show you the radar screen again. Here I am. And then there's a plane here at 4,400 feet, and then there's another plane here. Now this guy is going into Frankfurt, but the other guy isn't, I don't think. Or if he is, it's not clear that he's intending to. He hasn't got a flight plan file, so that's not helpful. But jumping back in the sim, these two diamond shapes here represent those aircraft. That is what TCAS provides us with. but in addition I can use my eyes and I can see a flashing white light just in front of me here, which is one of those aircraft. So I'm now going to what I'm just going to do here is turn the plane to the south, which will create a little bit more space. I'm just going to fly on 180 degrees. Right, what I'm now looking at is these pink diamonds on the primary flight display here. Okay, so one is the localizer, one is the glide slope. The glide slope is how fast we should be descending. The localizer is the runway center line. So when this pink diamond hits that yellow line, that is the altitude we need to be holding in order to hit the runway at the right point. When this pink diamond hits that yellow line, that shows us as being on the runway center line. So I'm just continuing my descent now down to 3,000. I can see that other aircraft still flashing over to the left hand side, and I'm now going to turn us around a little bit more. We've just gone through the localizer, but it's okay because I'm just giving ourselves a little bit of space. To make sure we definitely don't cut across that traffic.
2,500.
So I'm holding 3,000 feet for the moment. And what I'm now going to just do is turn to the north, 000 degrees, and we'll establish from the south. It's always harder when you don't have the air traffic controllers on. Right, let's put out some flaps. Arm the speed brakes now. And just until I have got myself established on the ILS, I'm going to put on approach hold, so it's going to pick up the runway centerline for me. Here we go, now turning towards the runway. And I'm now going to announce on the Unicom what I'm doing. Frankfurt traffic, Speedbird 916, establishing ILS 07 center, 9 miles, Frankfurt traffic. So I've just told everyone at Frankfurt that I'm 9 miles away from 07 center. John, yeah, the headset I use is a Track IR headset. And it's great, so it's this, it just clips onto a baseball cap and then I can look left to right, up and down, etc. It moves me around the cockpit. So I'm just going to set 5,000 feet into the autopilot just in case I have to do a missed approach. I don't think we're going to need to. I'm also going to now put out more flap. And of course the all-important landing gear. Can just about see the runways out there, look. Quite sure why we're not seeing the lights, but that may resolve itself as we get closer in. What you can now just see on this here is that the pink diamond's on the yellow line and the pink diamond's on the yellow line. That means we're on descending at the right rate and we're on the centre line. Right, full flaps now. And I'm going to set the auto brakes to low. And it's now time to turn off the autopilot. So I have control. There's a little bit of wind coming from the left, but otherwise this is nice and smooth. Nothing to be concerned about here. So flaps are at full. I have the speed brakes armed and I have the gear down, which means I'm all good to land. In addition, if you look at those lights at the left hand side of the runway, you should see 2 white and 2 red. If I see 2 white and 2 red, that means I'm approaching at the right profile, at the right rate, right angle I suppose. It's just a good visual reference. Frankfurt traffic, speedbird 916, now short final for 7 centre. Frankfurt traffic.
1,000.
1,000 feet to go. So I've now got 3 white and 1 red at the left hand side of the runway, which means I'm slightly steep. That's fine, I'm just going to... There we go, got back to 2 and 2. So now you can see those 2 white and 2 red lights. Takes a lot of practice, I find, to do this, but if they're all white, you're too steep. If they're all red, you're too shallow. If you've got 2 and 2, you're about right. It's really weird to think I'm going to be doing this tomorrow. I have to fly to Frankfurt tomorrow for work.
Above.
It's quite surreal, but hey, you know, if something happens to the pilots, at least I've got some practice in. Okay, so this is looking nice. Minimum. And we're going to go ahead and land. So if I couldn't see the runway at that point, I'd need to go around.
50, 30, 20, retard.
Pull the throttles back, and we're down. So I've got the thrust reversers on. I'm going to turn off the auto brakes, and actually I'm going to turn off the thrust reversers as well. No, you don't. Come on. There we go. Sorry. Got a little bit excited there when I turned off the thrust reversers. Right. So all I'm just going to do here is coast towards the end of the runway. What I can do now is bring in the speed brakes, bring in the flaps. This avoids a really long, boring taxi. And I'm going to select gate Victor 116. And we can go and find our gate. So it's sometimes quite difficult steering planes on the ground. They want to turn towards the wind, which is what's happening here. I'm having to apply a bit of pressure on the right hand side of the rudder. I think we should pull off here. Frankfurt traffic, speedbird 916 has vacated runway 7 centre. Frankfurt traffic. Okay.
Frankfurt traffic, Tanzania, Yankee Establish runway 07 center, Frankfurt.
So it sounds like there's another pilot just behind me. Right, let's turn off the landing lights and turn off the strobes, turn off the wing lights, and go and find our gate. It's just going to be over here to the right. John, you say the other half was just asking about the headset. I mean, are you suggesting there that is Hayley into VR? Does she want to get into virtual reality? I mean, obviously, I strongly encourage it if she does. So as we're taxiing in, we're just going to turn on the auxiliary power unit, the APU. That means that we can still have the plane powered up even once we turned off the engines. Pretty quiet at Frankfurt now, I think, but then it is getting quite late. And I'm conscious it's quite late. I'm really grateful to all of you for sitting this out and watching it. Hope you enjoyed it. I will do another one very soon. What have we got over here? Yeah, looking like a few vehicles for luggage and stuff. Okay, there's V118, there's V116, so this is us coming up here. And I love doing this because this is truly as real as it gets from a home simulation perspective. End-to-end flying, totally precise, doing everything in the cockpit that a pilot would have to do. I know obviously there would be more stuff in practice. There's a lot of other stuff that I'm not aware of, but this is so realistic. Just to be doing at home, it's great. So I'm just following the marshal down there now until I come to a stop. This I find really quite hard. And here he goes. Oh. There we go. So parking brakes can go on. And we're going to turn off the engines. And we'll stop blinding this poor fella and turn off the taxi lights as well. I parked a bit too far, says GSX. Oh well. Turn off the beacon. And let's take a look outside. Looks like my landing lights are still on. I don't know why they would be. Are my landing lights stuck on? Maybe they are. So here's the plane. We've got the stairs coming out. And what we can now do is start deboarding. God, those lights are bright. They shouldn't be stuck on like that. I'm not quite sure why they are. And we can now shut the plane down.
Frankfurt Traffic Standard 9 Yankee vacating via Lima 9.
So what we're just going to do is switch over to external power now. And we will shut down the APU. Let's take a walk around outside. These lights are absolutely blinding. Oh, they've gone off at last. Good. So here we are. Here's the plane we've flown all the way from Frankfurt to London. And we've now got some cargo offloading over to the side. And there are even some passenger buses on their way over as well. and we'll see a few AI people walking out to the buses. And I will be doing this tomorrow evening, around about the same time. I think it's the Speedbird 916 I'm taking out, in fact. So I'm going to call it a day there. I've really enjoyed doing this. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, please hit the subscribe button. Please click on the like button. Please click on the bell so you hear about future videos that I put up. I'll be doing more short and long haul flying on both MSFS 2020 and on P3D, just like we have done tonight, with more live streams coming up in the very near future. So thanks for watching. Enjoy what's left of your weekend, and I will speak to you very, very soon.